On 10th of June 2012, the worst happened, shocking out the nation of Kenya, and in whose hands Kenyan security lay normal.
Many enemies from different quarters.
Professor George Saitoti, his assistant Orwa Ojode, two of their bodyguards and two pilots had perished in an early morning crash above Kibiko Forest in Ngong. 10 years later, the 6 days have joined a long list of Kenyan public mysteries with no resolution at sight. Did Saitoti die in a normal plane crash or was there any foul play?
I've not heard, even those who were speculators, coming up with any alternative theories. So I would want to believe it was an accident.
It is incredibly strange that the person who is heading in charge of your national security would die in such a manner, and there's no conclusive, answer that's given to rebut any rumors, to clarify any suspicions, to iron out all of these things, even only for the families of the 6 people who are on that helicopter.
For more than a decade, there were 2 renowned professors at the helm of Kenyan leadership. Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi himself, a self-declared professor of politics, and his then vice George Saitoti, a true professor of mathematics. Professor Saitoti was appointed finance minister in 1983's election. Taking over from Mwai Kibaki, was transferred to Home Affairs. Saitoti rose through the ranks to become Moi's principal assistant for stretched 13 years, making him the longest serving second in command until after his acrimonious fallout with Moi in the run-up to the historic 2002 general election, when late President Moi baffled friend and foe by hand-picking Uhuru Kenyatta as his preferred successor.
Huyu makamu wa rais ni rafiki, lakini urafiki, sikieni, urafiki ni tofauti. Yule ambaye anaweza kuendesha kupeleka wananchi kama vile mimi ningependelea wananchi kuongozwa ni Uhuru Kenyatta.
A calculating and by some accounts paranoid politician, Saitoti was the perfect of vice president all those years, never showing ambition for the top job, never overshadowing his boss, until the 18th of March 2002, when Raila Odinga's National Development Party NDP merged with KANU at a colorful ceremony at the famous Kasarani Sports Complex. Saitoti realized he will not be occupying any of the 4 vice chairman spots, appeared to differ with his boss in public. That day will be recalled as one of Saitoti's most enduring sentiments.
There come a time when the nation is more important than an individual. It is because of that consideration and in consultation that I say I shall not offer myself for any position. I can see many of my supporters are unhappy, but you will prove me right in the future. Asante.
Emboldened by Raila's public protest against Moi, Saitoti joined the breakaway KANU function, dealing the Grand Old Party a near-death blow. KANU had no chance against the resulting opposition. In ensuring NAC administration, Saitoti appeared poised for greater things. Around 3rd February 2006, a report by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the Golden Bag saga recommended criminal charges be preferred against the former Vice President Saitoti for his involvement in the scandal. 10 days later, the Vice President resigned from his position, paving way for extensive investigation. On 31st July 2006, a 3-judge bench issued an order that cleared Saitoti of all the charges. By the time of his death, Saitoti had fronted himself for presidency with somewhat mixed heritage of Mount Kenya region and Maasai land. He was arguably the man with power and money to succeed Mwai Kibaki, and those within say all was ready for the journey ahead.
nataka niwaambie wale ambao hamkusikia ama wamesahau, mimi nimeshatangaza tayari mahali popote ambao mimi ninatembea kwamba nitasimama kiti cha rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
On 10th of June 2012, the aircraft 5YCDT AS-350 dropped from the sky into Kibiko Forest in Ngong. Minutes later, amateur footage from the first eyewitness showed a scene of a terrible accident. The mangled defuselized of a small aircraft, passengers on board burnt beyond recognition. But there was going to be more news flashes. On board of the ill-fated plane were Kenyan Security Minister George Saitoti, his assistant Joshua Orwa Ojode, their bodyguards Joshua Tonkei and Thomas Murimi. Also on board had been Luke Oyugi and his co-pilot Nancy Gitwanja. All of them killed in the crash. Residents watched in disbelief. At the time, Amos Kimunya was the transport minister and the nature of his job allowed him to receive briefs of any accident. And he thought this was just another normal crash. It was not.
The guy in charge of aircraft accidents then called me and said, well, we've had a small issue, a big issue. We had an aircraft crash and VVIP. So it didn't occur to me, yeah, that we'll be talking the same person we just talked with, and now they have gone to the airport and taken off. And so he said, so what has happened? Who is involved? And when he told me, I told my wife, Prof, because when I told her, now I'm not going to Thiwa, right? I was ready to go. And said, after we just talked, they've just been involved in an accident, and it's like, it's fatal. Eh?
The then Kipipili MP said he was shaken by the news, not just because he had lost a friend, but he could have been part of the 8:30 a.m. tragedy.
On the material day when he passed away, we were supposed to be together in Ojode's place, Dhiwa, for a fundraiser, and then move to, I think, Kericho to do some party affairs. So when we left Mombasa, because that's the last function he really had, by the time we left Mombasa, we had agreed we were going to meet at Wilson Airport, get on the chopper together, and go to Thiwa. But as fate would have it, the late Ojode did not travel on Saturday to wait for us in Thiwa. So Prof then called me in the morning and said, we can't travel together because Honorable Ojode did not go yesterday, so I'm giving a lift. And since we are only 4, the chopper can take only 4 people, he's calling me to agree to give my space to Ojode. So, and I did that.
Within a month, Kimunya will quickly gazette a team to investigate the accident by commissioning an inquiry so quickly gazetted.
It's something that touched me, directly. In that, I was supposed to be part of that delegation. That's how has happened. I'm the Minister for Transport. So the next thing is obviously we have to start the investigation in terms of what happened. And I gazetted the team. And now because of him being a cabinet minister, the matter had now to be taken a scale a notch higher to a presidential commission of inquiry. And also there was lots of issues. So we then ended up now de-gazetting and gazetting again for the commission of inquiry now by the president and not by the Minister for Transport.
The government are forced to answer difficult questions by the journalist. But why would this accident of so much importance to the public? Investigative journalist John Allan Namu is among the journalists asking hard questions, following the trail all the way to South Africa.
He had been surprisingly open about the findings of a report that was submitted, I think, by the then U.S. Ambassador Michael Rannenberger about specific members of parliament who were suspected to be involved in the drug game. Just a few years earlier, Kenya had seized one of its biggest hauls of cocaine. So there was certainly a lot of interest around George Saitoti as a person, enough for there to warrant an inquiry.
Saitoti lived a reclusive lifestyle and feared a lot for his life. Just 2 decades earlier, he escaped death by a whisker in what was calculated murder attempt. The commission of inquiry put in place in time
Honorable Lady Judge
was chaired by top judge Kalpana Rawal. The Rawal Commission did little to unlock the mystery behind the death of Saitoti. A reconstruction of the journey from Wilson Airport to Ndiwa shows the aircraft under the command of Luke Oyugi and Nancy Gitwanja took exactly 10 minutes from the time of kickoff to the time it hit the ground in Kibiko Forest. The pilots were in communication with the command center for the first 6 minutes. The plane then left Wilson Airport airspace that minute, and strangely its tracker shows that it turned back towards Wilson and strangely descended to the ground in a record 3 minutes, killing everyone on board. There was not any evidence that pilots tried to control the plane or raised any alarm to ask for help, even though the communication channel were operational, giving rise to opinion that the pilots might have been long dead. The Commission of Inquiry was tasked with what happened in those 180 seconds. And it was here that the Commission said that indeed Saitoti was poisoned.
I, Dr. Amritpal Khalsi.
The stunning revelation sharply contradicted with the government's official report that the minister's blood and tissue aligning indicated no poisoning. Dorothy Njeru and Dr. Murij Pal Kaur Khalsi told the sitting that Saitoti's body indicated significant amount of carbon monoxide poisoning. This was the evidence by a cherry pink discoloration of the tissue.
With the background of a body that is significantly involved in burn injuries, then the bright red discoloration is suggestive of carbon monoxide poisoning or inhalation.
Yes. So that's with the additional observations that you did when you observed in your participation, which are not captured in the report.
Yes, Your Honor.
The two forensic experts outrightly disowned the previous post-mortem reports that had been presented to the Commission by Dr. Johansen Odor, even though they found part of the team that formed the 6-hour exercise, with Johansen not mentioning any poison.
Yesterday you mentioned about calls you received the day after post-mortem. You remember that discussion?
Yes.
Would you want to share with us those calls and the concern by the callers?
I was only called by our senior most colleague, Dr. Johansen Odor, and he mentioned that we were not supposed to divulge any information, including photographs or the notes, or tell anybody about anything, and he had been given this information by NSIS.
Apart from Dr. Odwar not indicating the poisoning, the role of the National Intelligence Agency also came into sharp focus.
The National Security Intelligence Services, being the main intelligence body in this country, would be interested in that kind of information. So it would be important that they know and they understand. I think there might have been, just thinking and reflecting back, there might have been some pressure to ensure that there was a tight lid on the kind of information that was coming out of the autopsy, so as to stem the very steady flow of rumors that surrounded the death of George Saitoti. But the very fact that there were so many gaping holes in the story and so many questions made that bit of information even more important to sort of pay attention to, right? Because in the final analysis of things, yes, Dr. Johansson was told not to disclose things, not to disclose to other people, and he told his juniors. But then why omit certain very crucial bits of information that would have helped in the autopsy?
A report by the official from the government's chemist Joyce Wairi Munjoya presented to the commission in 2012 indicating that only Luke Oyugi had carbon monoxide poisoning while his co-pilot Nancy Gitwanja and Saitoti returned negative results. It has always been the question on what really was the cause of the colorless and odorless gas carbon monoxide if Nancy Gitwanja did not inhale it at all. But Luke Oyugi's was at 68% concentration, yet they both sat at the same cockpit. It has also never been said why the bodies of Ojode, Tonkei and Murimi were not tested, forming two of the most serious loopholes in the investigation.
And then third was the switching of the manifest of the people who were supposed to be flying that helicopter on the day. So those were the three things around the flight itself.
On the morning that the accident happened, it was supposed to be Air Wing Commandant Mbidi flying the security minister, but that plan was quickly changed and Luke Oyugi and Nancy Gitwanja were hurriedly recalled to work. Then there was the issue of George Saitoti's Nokia E63 mobile phone. The small device had survived the crash and found itself in the hands of a police officer, Constable Evans Kiprotich. For about a month, Saitoti's mobile phone, though in the hand of a police officer, made and received a total of 42 calls. Strangely, 31 of those calls were to the same number. The public has never been made aware who that person was and what information they wanted from Saitoti's handset. 10 years on, there are still no answers to what transpired that day, but Amos Kimunya believes there's nothing left to tell.
Let's just say at times we look at things from, when it's your time, it's your time. Yeah, it could have been a car, it could have been an aircraft, it could have been people have been known to sleep and not wake up. So I kind of at times believe it's like when it's your time to go. That's it. When it's not your time, I could have been in another aircraft. But because God had said it's not your time yet, so created a situation where Ojode could not fly the day before, and hence we needed to agree who takes the space, the seat. Is it him or me? Again, all these are God's workings.
No. The death of George Saitoti was never an accident. And you could tell from the activities that followed after his death. The pathologists didn't agree. There was a bit of cover-up. The commission of inquiry that was set up, you could look at the membership. External investigators like FBI and Scotland Yard were not involved. So the same people who, in my opinion, participated in the death of George Saitoti, in my opinion, also participated in the cover-up, just like that one of Robert Uko.
In my view, it definitely wasn't just another accident. Look, it is incredibly strange that the person who is heading in charge of your national security would die in such a manner, and there's no conclusive, answer that's given to rebut any rumors, to clarify any suspicions, to iron out all of these things, even only for the families of the 6 people who are on that helicopter. Why is this still an open question? That's what bothers me.
A few years earlier, Kenya had seized its largest cocaine haul. Just before his death, Saitoti had promised the National Assembly to name drug lords in the country and give evidence within 10 days. And it was within those 10 days that they dropped from the sky dead. To date, there had been no determination that whether this was a mere coincidence or not.
So there are many political assassinations in our country that took place since independence that up to now they have not been unraveled. So I think it was very sad. I mean, from the outset, and I'm sure you, the media, were there. So the death of George Saitoti was not an accident.
Then what it does is that it erodes trust in all of these institutions that were handling various aspects of the investigation, right? There was a police, of course. There's the government pathologist. And there's other, agencies that were very interested in finding out what happened. That there's no conclusive answer really begs the question about why there's no conclusive answer. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah? The fact that there's no answer is an answer in itself about how we do things in this country.
There is also a fury that Saitoti was a front-runner in the presidential election and that these two could have handed him a number of enemies across the political landscape. But just like mystery around the narcotic list, this political angle too has never been probed and laid to rest. 10 years down the line, Saitoti remained one of the household names in Kenyan politics.
The other thing that I also realized later on is my first car, which I bought when I was in second year at the university. It was a Citroën, KPA 828. Now, the first owner of that car was Professor Saitoti. Then he sold it to some chap who then, sold it. He couldn't cope with it and sold it to me. I bought it and then remodeled it and did it. A student feeling hot, huh?
The story still remains the same. Professor George Saitoti, termed as one among Kenyan leaders, with mysterious death remain unresolved but never forgotten. Abdi Majid Hussein, NTV.